Did it do it? That's why I don't like. Oh, good. Okay, we're alive. I'm sorry. Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is Kathy Mason from Conscious Business Zone and Mason Works Marketing here today with my friend Roberta Grimes, and I am so excited for you to meet her. Hi, Roberta.
I'm so glad to be here. How are you, darling?
This is cool. The technology is amazing, isn't it?
It is.
Well, Roberta, the last time I was with you, we got to have dinner, you and Jackie and I got to have dinner at the Boulderado because you were doing a presentation at Gaia
Yes.
PT. And so you guys, even though you might not know about Roberta, you need to know about Roberta. And the first time I met Roberta, I helped her with a PowerPoint at a presentation at IONS in Boulder, Colorado, when her book, The Fun of Dying, came out, correct? Well, you may have had several books.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one it was at this point. It may have been one of the later ones.
Well, so basically, you guys, Roberta Grimes is a very prolific author who has connections with the divine in a very extraordinary way. She's a small business lawyer turned, what do you want to call it? It's not really channeling, is it? What do you want to call it, Roberta?
We're all channeling. Everybody who's a prolific writer is a channel. They just don't know it yet.
Well,
I'm a researcher. That's all I am. I had an extraordinary experience when I was 8 years old. I wanted to know what was behind that. And so I started right out of college. I started researching the afterlife. I've been doing it for almost 50 years and very extensively. And everybody, here's the big news. It's real. There's no way it's not real. So that's exciting. Then you want to know more and more about it when you know it's real. So that's where I am now.
Wow. So you have a way though to connect that's you helped a mother with her son, and I just gave away that book. I read it.
Oh, okay. I can tell that story.
Yeah, do you want to? That's an amazing story.
It is. It is. I was at an afterlife conference in the spring of 2012, and I met a very sort of insecure woman who was lovely, though. She had lost her son just a few years before, and she was in contact with him. And she told me, among other things, that he was a 6th level being. What does that mean? She said to me. I said, I don't think he's a 6th level being, but I felt bad for her. So I didn't believe in pendulum communication either, not at all. I mean, that's ridiculous. So we went back to her room and with 3 grieving mothers. And I saw her do this stuff. She knew nothing about it, still does not know anything about it, but she brought forth this amazing being who one by one brought forth validating messages to each of these mothers, and all of them were crying. So I said, okay, this is a little amazing. I got to know her better, and her story is true, and it's unique in the world as far as I know. I know of no other being who came from near the top of what we call the afterlife, the 6th level, so concerned about humankind that he took a voluntary lifetime, hundreds of years after he had not needed anymore to incarnate. And he lived for 20 years as Mikey Morgan in Colorado.
Right.
And then he died when he was 20, devastating for his mother. Typically in cases where people choose to die young, which this was his last planned exit point, they have a sibling, and he has a younger sibling, like younger brother. But he reached out to his mother, and he managed to get her to the people who were able to teach her first how to use a pendulum, and then how to communicate with him telepathically. She still uses the pendulum to confirm what he says. Now, I didn't believe any of this, but I knew I knew everything he would need to know. Although, of course, if he truly was where he said he was, he would know more than I did. So I watched him answer hundreds of questions, all kinds of questions, some of which it was like, oh, I knew for sure. Some of it was tricky, such as, what is a near-death experience? 99% of the people who don't know much about them would say, oh, well, you go to heaven, you come back. Well, no, what he said is what's true, that if you actually go to where the dead are, it's a one-way trip. You don't come back because of the silver cord. Yes, Mikey, you knew that too. So within about a year he went to afterlife forums. I suggested his mother take him there so that he could answer a lot of questions. And by the end of a year, I knew he knew more than I do. So that's nobody in a body does. So I thought that was pretty amazing.
Well, tell the story about, I mean, she was using like almost a Ouija board or the pendulum. Word, letter by letter to make words before she met you. And then through your help, she was able to bring in content, right?
Well, I don't think it was so much me as the encouragement I gave her to continue. I mean, Mikey's in charge of this whole, he's way above all of us. He's in charge of all of it. And incidentally, just for fun, I should tell you that he was at the lower part of the 6th level when he took this amazing extra earth lifetime of 20 years. And I'm told that because that was considered to be such a sacrifice, he ended up raising his vibration so much now he's very near the level of the Godhead.
Wow.
So why don't more of them try this? I don't know, but it's like the worst hard duty you can imagine for them to decide to come to Earth when they haven't been here in so long. But he wanted to be able to communicate with us in our language, with our idioms, knowing our culture, which he last lived in the 1600s. No way would we would have thought he was weird as can be. But now he's communicating. He's the only one I've ever known of who had, I'm pretty sure I would know about it if someone else had, the only person who has ever communicated to us from the 6th level, not as part of a collective. They do communicate, but it's a collective and they sound funny. They sound weird because they haven't been in bodies for so long. But then there's Mikey saying, oh, I wish I could have a Chipotle burrito. That's what I really miss the most. That kind of thing. He's fabulous. And his book, everyone should read because it's the best book of its kind in existence. It's called Flying High in Spirit, a young snowboarder's account of his ride through heaven. And Mikey still snowboards there. He loves snowboarding, and he says the mountains are way better there. And he's now as good as Shaun White. I have no idea who Shaun White is because I'm not a snowboarding fan, but apparently he's a big shot. So he can't wait to show Shaun White when he gets there just how well he can snowboard now too.
Isn't it neat? So do you connect with him more often still?
I don't connect with him.
I don't at all. You just
he has made it clear to us, including to me. He has come to some meetings I've had with my primary spirit guide and sometimes other guides as well. He has been there, but what he has let me know that he needs to communicate only through Carol. Carol, his mother, Carol Morgan, is the only person that he needs to be in contact with. He's hoping she lives a long time. The plan is she lost her child very young, so she has a long time to communicate for him.
Wow.
And the only thing that's needed now is more exposure to the truth. Because once you understand what's going on, you understand what a treasure it is to have one person who is 6th level communicating with us. Between you and me, dear, everybody who is communicating with someone in the afterlife, almost always they're level 3, level 4 at the most. They don't know what's above them. They really have no idea. And so he is able to tell us about the whole panoply of the afterlife. Every other book I've seen like this is a lot of guesswork on the part of the spirit, and often very wrong guesswork. Some of it's scary, some of what that people read in these books. So I don't recommend it. Flying High in Spirit, that's the book to read. That's true, and it's in Mikey's words, all of it.
That is so cool. So Flying High in Spirit is one of the books, and if I was on BeLive, I'd go to robertagrimes.com, but I'll put it in the conversation so everyone can go and see. So Roberta, let's talk about your book, your first book that I read. And it's The Fun of Dying and Staying in Touch.
Yeah. Well, that's actually 2 books, and I do have them here.
I'll show you the books. Okay. So The Fun of
Dying came out in 2012.
That's
2010. I think The Fun of Staying in Touch was 2014 something.
Okay, can you lift them a little higher?
A little higher.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So, for all of us that have been going through this coronavirus time period that are still frightened of death, I highly recommend these books and Following Roberta. If you get to know Roberta, you'll see she answers every email. If you type anything in her contact thing, or if you get on her email list, she actually contacts you back, because she's really dedicated to helping people not be afraid of what's the big picture is. Correct?
I had a wonderful email this past week from
Mhm.
someone I first heard from 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
He was terrified of death. He was scared that he'd lose his wife, he'd lose his dogs. He was almost more afraid that there was something after death, but he wouldn't have his loved ones around him.
Oh,
And so I counseled him some. Then I was answering his questions. I was suggesting what he read. Then I didn't hear from him for maybe 6 or 8 months. And then this past week, I got an email in which he told me now he knows the truth about everything. All his fears are gone. And he said, you told me it would take about 2 years. And it has been just about 2 years since I sent you that first email. But he sounded calm, confident, beautiful. And everybody can have that certainty. You can have that certainty. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you believe now. It's possible to know the truth about death. And you know what Jesus said? If you hold to my teachings, you are really my disciples. Well, then you also will understand what's going on. But he said, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And that's exactly what happens with the truth about death.
yes.
It's impossible for people to die. It's impossible. Our minds are eternal. And
Right.
it's beautiful.
That's so cool. So your journey from small business lawyer to author of extraordinary books, by way of being a devout Christian, reading the Bible from end to end.
Mm-hmm.
Every
I've had a strange history, that's for sure.
you do, actually you do. Not strange, it's actually delightful, I have to say, because you are open to not being so closed-minded and fundamental with everything, and being open to the truth of it. How can you explain that, or
Yeah,
can you
yeah.
share?
Because I just wanted to know when I had this experience of light at 8, I thought it was God speaking, but it didn't really sound like God. I mean, it sounded more like a young man, and it turned out it was my spirit guide, not God. And that's generally the case when we think we have a divine experience. It's really our spirit guide who's very close to us. But then, so I wanted to know what had happened, but of course I never asked a question, never got an answer. So when I went to college, I majored in early Christian history. I recommend that every Christian do this. It's sort of like going to a sausage factory if you love sausage. It helps you understand how it's made. I learned how Christianity was made,
Right.
but I still thought I was going to be a minister. Then I married a Catholic. No, can't be a minister now. So for 25 years, I was an ardent Catholic. But meanwhile, as you said, I have read the Bible from cover to cover every night. I did it for decades, until the early 50s. And I was researching the afterlife, and I was reading the Bible, and I was being a lector in the Catholic Church.
Wow.
And then one day I realized I had come to the end of what I could do, because the more I was learning that, in fact, Christianity is simply a lie. It is not true. I loved Jesus too much to make that discovery. And think about it. If you discover that there is no hell, is it possible you could go to hell for making that discovery? I mean, that's how scared I was suddenly in my early 50s, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
I didn't read the Bible for 2 years, but I kept, I had been reading it repeatedly. I actually didn't read any more afterlife evidence either. I just wanted to forget the whole thing and try to just be a Christian. But I kept thinking, Jesus told us some of the stuff that we learn in the evidence. And one day I was brave, and I said, okay, I'm going to try. And I sat down and I read just the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yeah.
And I discovered there, in those so familiar pages, seeing them freshly after 2 years, I discovered Jesus told us things about God, reality, death, the afterlife, and the meaning and purpose of our lives that we could not possibly have learned in any other way until the 20th century. Little things and big things. And there was nothing Jesus had said that was not true. And that was the greatest day of my life. That was the day I came to understand that Christianity is all wrong, but Jesus is all right.
Well,
And that's it. And I've been teaching that ever since. And it's the most joyous thing you can imagine learning, because Christianity is fear-based. It scares you to death.
right, right.
And
Well,
once you're free of it, you're never scared of anything again.
well, in the Old Testament, God gets upset and kills everybody over and over again. So
Yeah.
that's not my picture of the loving God, or the idea of creative potential, which is what all of this really is,
That's
right?
right.
Well,
That's
you
right.
also, I think in the lecture that I heard with you, so I got to see you twice when you were lecturing here in Colorado. I saw you once in Boulder, and then I drove all the way down to Denver to see you again.
Did you really?
Yeah, there's a big, well, there was a 40 of us or something at the first one, and then there was like 150 at that church. What you were also showing, what is it, Sonia Rinaldi? Is that the name of
Yes.
the lady? Could you explain a little bit about that research, because it's fascinating. So there are people that are really wanting us to see there's scientific quantum proof that what Jesus said and what the saints, what the indigenous know, is our reality. And we kind of put this layers of all this conditioning and programming on top of it. And what Roberta's done is she's pulling piece by piece, she's giving us the details of the ways that we can get back to the real heart of the matter.
I think it's important that everybody understand that there is no religion that is not man-made.
Right.
There is clearly a craving, a human craving for contact with the divine. Not surprisingly, since we are divine by our very nature, our minds are all part of the same great mind that continuously manifests this reality. So we've hungered for that, but we haven't even understood what we were looking for. So every religion, every one of them without exception, is human made, is our best guess. And because it's so important that people be spiritual, they think it's a virtue to teach fear, because what's going to get you up on Sunday morning and into that pew and putting money in the bucket? What's going to do it but fear? I mean, you can say, well, Jesus loves me, but if there isn't a consequence, you're not going to go to church. That's just a fact. We know that. And unfortunately, every religion is structured that way. And Christianity is among the most deeply fear-based of all. And it's fear-based in a way which is creepy. And I can say all these things because I have a religion major and I've read the Bible repeatedly, and I've been a Christian. I was a Christian for 50 years, and big one. But one day Jesus said to me that I could either be a Christian or I could follow him. And I knew by then that there was no way I could do both. So I chose Jesus, and I have never regretted it. That was the beginning of my spiritual life.
Well, you did, one of your books, you wrote about your relationship with Jesus. Do you have that one handy?
I do.
Oh, good. Yeah, I read that one, Liberating Jesus. And didn't you say that the Proverbs were what you should really use in the Bible?
No, just the Gospels.
Oh, just the Gospel. Sorry.
Take your whole Bible. Jesus himself said he was replacing the entire Old Testament. So got scissors, you can cut the whole Old Testament out. And everything that comes after John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, everything that comes after that fourth chapter of the New Testament is from Paul. And Paul demonstrably didn't understand. He did the best he could, but he was a human being again. This vexatious notion that people can create a religion that is consistent with what God would create is totally nonsense. It's not true. Right. So all you need is those poor little books. And that book was channeled as well. I mean, I didn't want to, but I ended up doing it because I was told I had to. And I'm very proud of it. I mean, I can say that because I didn't write it. It's really, really wonderful and true, but I didn't write it.
So how is, and this is Conscious Business Zone, and most of the listeners are businesses that are conscious, that they're making choices that will affect, that are good for their customers, good for their internal customers, which are their employees, and have a long lifespan. They're consciously choosing rather than flowing along with how to make money. They're it's a much more liberated way of being. And you're an example of that because you were a small business lawyer having these extraordinary experiences. How did you how did you coordinate your being between, I mean, did you just wear, I've got to be normal now, I'm going to put my lawyer hat on when you'd meet with someone?
It's all normal. It's just that a lot of it's not as well known because people, seek and you will find. Because if you don't seek, you're not going to find. And I was seeking, but it was very late in my career as a business consultant, business attorney, before I ever told anyone what I was doing. And then the fun of dying was about to come out, so I had to come out. I had to tell each of my clients. I have, this is what I do for my career, but I have another life, and I'm about to write a book and or publish it, and it was about to come out, and they had two reactions. Some of them said, "Oh, great! I want to learn all about. Let me tell me everything you know," and that kind of thing. And there were others sitting there in suits who, when their lawyer said all this, they said, "Oh, interesting. Well, back to this paragraph." They just didn't want to talk about it, which is fine. I never have tried to press anybody to try to understand what I know. But I do know that I don't care how much people are afraid, it takes about 2 years and you'll never be afraid again.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. So I started to mention about Sonia Rinaldi in your presentation because I think it's when you were talking about the young man that died on the ski boarding accident, you were able to show black and white images of what the other dimensions look. Are they dimensions? Are they levels? What are they?
What is channel 7 and channel 9 and channel 12? What are those?
Channels?
They're energy vibrations.
Oh, I see. So it's just tuning. They're
just
tuning.
a matter. There are really infinite levels. We talk in terms of 7, but those are sort of collective levels of energy, because energy is all that exists. And the primary energy is what we experience in a dim way as consciousness. And the beings who are most advanced at Mikey's level, and this is one reason he came when he did, have become very concerned about the future of our planet. I don't tell you anything surprising when I tell you that the energy vibration has sunk so negative on the earth now that we cannot raise it anymore on our own. We are getting supernatural help, and big time supernatural help right now. And they tell us they think it's going to work. We hope so. Yeah. There was one other planet in the whole solar system, not the solar system, the whole universe, where the same kind of thing happened. They just got too deep, and that planet destroyed itself. We don't want that to happen to us.
Right. So there's a lot of us. I'm psychic and intuitive also. So there's a lot of us working with pulling in the angelic realm.
Yeah, there
as much as possible.
Many people who are roughly around our age and younger came in in an effort to rescue the planet.
Right.
And that's what we're doing in our own little ways. And so what Sonia and some others are doing is working with people who are not in bodies, many names you would know, scientists. And what they're trying to come up with is what amounts to a hardwired way for us to communicate with people that we used to think were dead. So ideally, you would end up with an app on your phone, and you forgot this ingredient in your great-great-grandmother's recipe, so you'd ring her up. Ideally, that's what they want. Now, it's very, very hard to do this. And even the dead scientists have not had an appreciation of how many obstacles there were to getting this done. But it's getting better. And Sonia Rinaldi is one of the people who is most advanced in working with the stations. And there are stations over the United States. There's one over Brazil, which is where Sonia is, stations which are, in the afterlife. And they're literally building this, figuring it out, doing the science. It's like it's the 19th century, and Edison is working, and a few other people are working. We're not seeing the benefits yet, but we will.
It's amazing. Well, when I saw those pictures and you were showing actually that Mikey was skiing and that these were the mountains and there were, it's black and white. Real. So it wasn't like.
No, it's very primitive stage still, right? No color.
Right. But the fact that it looks material at all was a surprise.
It is material. They tell us it is as material there as it is here, but it's a different kind of matter. Think of it more like some kind of almost translucent kind of matter, which is all alive. All of it is, including our bodies, but also everything else. And in certain lights, you almost can see through it, but not quite. That's sort of the way it's described to us. And it's solid, totally solid. The advantage, though, with the mountains is that the snow is not cold unless you want it to be cold. Then your mind says cold and you feel cold. So he's able to snowboard in his t-shirt, because what the heck?
Oh, and spring snowing all year round.
Yes.
Skiing all year round.
That's right.
Oh, that's great. So I want to ask a question. Your personal guide is Thomas Jefferson. And
he would never say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Oh.
He wants to be known as Thomas now.
Okay, Thomas. I'm sorry. What?
I'm teasing you, and I'm teasing him actually at the same time.
Okay. Well, Thomas, I'm curious what he's seeing about this whole period of time that we're in. That it appears that all of the contrast is being visible like never before. I mean, maybe there was contrast even in the Roman Empire, but it wasn't, people didn't know about it. But now with the internet and with all these different possible explanations for everything, how, I know that they're helping us bring in more light. I know that, but I'm curious what kind of communications, because Thomas was part of the original designers of our country.
He wrote the Declaration of Independence. He was the primary author of it.
Right. So do you have any input from him for us that you can think of that would give us hope or a guide of what to do?
Jesus came to teach us how to bring the kingdom of God on earth.
Okay.
When we say the Lord's Prayer, we say, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven."
Right.
That's what Jesus came to do, nothing else. He didn't need to, God forbid, he didn't need to die to save us from God's wrath. That's a horrible, in fact, he says right in the Gospels, that's nonsense. Before he even died, he told us that was wrong. Yeah. But the thing is, at this point, with the vibration so low, we have gone far in the other direction from the kingdom of God on earth. What Thomas's whole focus is to raise the vibration of this planet as rapidly as possible. That's why I'm working. That's everything I do, is to teach people how to raise their own vibration. And why does that matter? Because all our minds are part of the same mind. There is no separation among us. It's all illusion. And therefore, when you or I work to raise our personal consciousness vibration, we minutely raise everybody else's. Right. So if you want, whoever is listening to this, if you want to save the world from the worst possible destruction, I mean, what he has predicted is pretty bad. The only thing you can do that can make a difference is to raise your own consciousness vibration. And that's, come to me, I'll tell you what to do.
That's perfect.
It's not even hard if you do the right things. That's what's so amazing to me.
Well, I think it's we don't realize how powerful we are, and that with that,
No, not at all.
and
Right.
that there's so much of what I found when I had a spiritually transformative experience was that what my soul, what's part of me that's in this little body is just a minute little part of what I really
That's
am,
right.
and
That's
connected
exactly
to
right.
source. So when if you can hold more light in this vessel, then you can bring more of that divine light into the whole world.
It's not hard, and it's natural, and it's what we're supposed to do. My book, which is third in this series, and I have it right here,
Good, thank you.
is The Fun of Growing Forever. This is how to use the teachings of Jesus and augmented a little bit, but not much, to transform yourself literally, and it doesn't even take a year, to begin to grow spiritually to the point where you can make a difference in the world. There's no other way to make a difference. Everything we do is based in fear, based in negativity, and it will only make things worse. No matter what we think we're doing, we're making it worse.
So where so the you know, the law of attraction and the idea of you just thinking something and creating that in your own environment, is that one of the ways? What could you share some of the ways besides reading the Gospels, or are the Gospels?
It's really simple. It's a lot of it is just what Jesus told us. He made a big thing about forgiveness,
Oh, okay.
and I believe forgiveness is the key to it all.
Oh, perfect.
And it's the key to it all because we programmed our minds to be so negative by teaching our minds to be upset about so many things. Your mind, when you come here, is just a small part of your whole vast eternal mind. You leave most of it behind, as you point out. And we have egos, and the ego's whole purpose is to keep us on edge and try to keep us alive. That's really what it's for, so that we think things are scary even if they're not. So you have this busy little grasping ego, which is purely negative, and it's working overtime to make you scared of things,
Right.
and make you resent things. For example, why do you resent bad driving? Oh, because your ego taught you to. Why do you get angry when your husband leaves his clothes all over the bedroom? Because then you have to do more work, and your mind, you taught your mind to be upset about that because you didn't want him to do it.
Right.
Our minds have two methods for setting our reaction. Either we react with love and kindness, or we will react with anger, and those are shaded. But when you think about it, what you've really done is to program your mind to be negative.
Right.
And the whole process of forgiveness, it's too hard to forgive things after they happen because you got to get angry, you got to wrestle it down, you got to try to get yourself to forgive him. But, well, he was nice to me 2 years ago, I'll forgive him. That's nonsense. You can't do it that way. You've got to do what we call prevenient forgiveness, which means forgiveness that comes before the wrong. And the way you teach yourself that, remember, your mind is very lazy, and it's really like only on or off. It's lazy, and it's very simple-minded. So whenever you think you're going to be angry about something, you have to make it too much trouble for your mind to react. So if you know you're about to, well, somebody cut you off on traffic, you're about to get upset, you immediately gather all that up, including the people, including what happened, into a ball that you say, what I'm doing is forming this really a mental ball, but you do it physically because it makes it more emphatic. Okay. And then you push it away. You say, I love you, I bless you, I forgive, and I release.
Beautiful.
Didn't do quite enough. I'm going to do it. So do it a second time. Same thing. I spent 2 weeks when I started this program. I spent 2 weeks, did not even leaving the house, only concentrating on making sure that each thing was immediately forgiven, totally forgiven, and gone. And in the beginning, your mind reacts, I don't want to forgive that. That's, over and over again. Oh, but he always leaves his trash cans out late. Oh, he does this, whatever you do, whatever you can be upset about, I was upset about. But I was firm. And every time, I love you, I bless you, I forgive, and I release, and I meant it. And it just took about 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, one morning, I was driving, and someone almost drove me off the road. In the old days, there was once I was so mad at someone who did something on the road that I actually followed him off the highway. And I ended up following him right to a police station, which is where he was going, because this crazy woman was not stopping. I mean, I believe me, I was no prize in the beginning, I got to tell you. But I suddenly realized that I had seen it, but it hadn't affected me.
Wow.
What happens is when you do this, your mind stops bothering to get you upset. And so even big things don't bother you anymore. It has been almost 10 years since I have had to ever once form a forgiveness ball. I forgive everything, and I'm never upset about it with anyone. If a bad thing happens, I just think, oh, that bad thing happened.
Well, that's
you can forgive. That's what I'm trying to say to people. And when you've done that, the rest is easy.
That's what the Course in Miracles is basically about too. Are you familiar with that?
So, of course, yes. And I recommend it highly.
Yeah, and also Ho'oponopono, if I'm saying it right, there's an Hawaiian process that I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And they call it cleaning. So you're just cleaning, and because you realize that everything really is a manifestation of your presence. So if you're upset, it's really yours to clear. Right?
Well, I'm sure I know there are multiple ways to do this. I just think that the teachings of Jesus are the easiest. They're really easy, and they work amazingly well. You don't have to learn to chant. You don't have to learn, get a guru or read a lot of stuff or do anything. All you need to do is live your life slightly differently. And it raises you hugely, and it makes you so much happier. I mean, nobody wants to be upset all the time. It's nice to never be upset again.
Right. So Roberta, so that's one of the things we can do. Are you working on a project, any other books or projects? I definitely want to make sure that people know your website so they can follow you and keep in touch. But are there any other things that you'd like to share with us that you're working on?
I have an 8-year-old podcast, almost 8 years old, called Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. And that podcast, we have experts, we have wonderful people with all kinds of stories, and put together, it pretty much gives you all the information you need to do very well. There are people who tell me that they love it. And every week, also at robertagrimes.com, every Sunday morning, there is a new blog post, which gets a lot of comments and interest, and that's fun too. But we need to do more. And what we're working on now, we're calling Seek Reality Online. And it will be a website where people can come, whatever their stage of knowledge, and learn first and most importantly that life is eternal. That changes everything in your life, everything. When you know you cannot die, when you understand that God is infinite love and nothing else, so you don't have to be afraid of God anymore. Wow, it changes everything. It really does. Yes. That's the beginning of the voyage to the truth. And so that's what our website will teach.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for everything you do. And I'll be glad if you want, I'll be glad to help in any way I can.
Aren't you lovely? Thank you.
To help. I love your work. I love your books. I have to say, I read everything, except I think I don't have one of them, but I've read all of your books except one. And I don't have any of them here anymore. I gave them all away. Well, no, because it was like, hey, you have to read this. Oh, they're fantastic. So I highly recommend you want to go to robertagrimes.com. Again, she does respond to every email. She is very adamant about helping you and nurturing you as a is an important ingredient in the recipe for this new world that we're creating. And
Thanks, all of us.
I'm so lucky that you're my friend. I really, Roberta, I hope we get to see each other in person again
I'd love it.
in this next year or so. But if there's anything I can do to help, I love your work. I
Oh,
love
thank you so much. I appreciate it. I will be in touch about that.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much. We're going
Thank
to
you.
sign off now. Again, it's robertagrimes.com. And please do yourself a favor and just start with the first book. Just start and you'll see. Well,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
dear.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.